of Silver Misery, Part 1 of Troublesome Tunes lore. TW, lead, homophobic behavior, and religious issues. This is not made to offend people. Or any Christians. Sorry if you're offended by it. Silver Misery is an angel that was born by mistake. She was never supposed to be created. But God decided she could be useful. Somehow, He let the other angels name her. Silver was born with 2 black birthmarks under their eyes that resembled tears, and her wings were silver. But the reason she was named Silver Misery was because she was named after 2 things the angels disliked. The color silver later became the staple of heaven, much to the dismay of the angels. Silver was in charge of the botanical gardens of heaven. They loved the plants and beauty each flower had. They managed to befriend the angel Lucifer, morning star. He rose the sun that helped the beautiful plants grow. Over the years, Silver watched as the creatures of earth made new creations. Electricity, clothes, and the ability to domesticate animals. They were fascinated, but it didn't last. Lucifer was thrown from heaven for defying the rules. Silver never smiled again. Who would rise the sun for their plants to grow? Silver was then moved to gate duty to make her smile again, but it only made her misery worse. This was around the time the calyx amori split up and the legendary chalice was trapped in the jar. Silver watched as the devil's casino was built. She saw all the adventures and excitement that happened there. Her heart was envious of the adventures that she could never have. They were the black sheep of heaven and were desperate to do anything outside of the boring routine of heaven. Every day was the same. Wake up, eat, water the plants, listen to the adventures of the souls, watch the adventures of the isles, eat, go to sleep. But one day, everything changed for Silver. She was on gate duty because Gabriel had to relax a few souls that were having PTSD. The first few souls were normal, a little cookie girl, a hellborn that had died of a car accident, and a baby demon. But the next soul would be why she had a statue built to commemorate her. It was an old man. Silver looked over his life. He was very homophobic and forgave things that were unforgivable. So they sent him down to hell. But when the angel Gabriel found out, he told the angelic council and looked over the man's life. The man was a priest. Silver was in a hell of a lot of trouble. She was put on trial for defamation of a priest. The trial went on for 11 hours until 12 a.m. She begged and pleaded her innocence, but her beliefs were against the rules of heaven. So she was found guilty. TW for next part, mentions of gore. Silver had their halo ripped from their head, which was extremely painful. Their wings were ripped out and their socks, shoes, and ropes ripped and torn apart. They screamed for help from God, but God refused to help her as she was now a rule breaker. Then she was thrown from heaven. Silver is 0.72 feet tall, but was shortened as she was thrown. She was burned and bruised in the process of falling. She fell through the roof of a church below, accidentally destroying it. Luckily, nobody except Silver was harmed in the process. As morning came, Lucifer decided to cause chaos around the Inkwell Isles. He found Silver's body in the wreckage of the church. Lucifer saw how infected the cuts and bruises were, so he took Silver back to the casino, without the knowledge of his staff or his right-hand man. He tried to nurse her for 1 month straight, but his efforts were in vain. Silver died of the excessive bleeding and of infections, and her form became of an 11-year-old kid. But the new body had the top half of a male and the bottom half of a female. Lucifer didn't want to care for a child, so he brought them to a foster home. But he decided to give them a new name so they wouldn't be recognized. Moonshot was the name he wrote on papers at the foster home, and Moonshot is only name they go by. Later on in the day, Silver's torn robes, halo, Bible, chalice, and flower crown were found at the wreckage of the church by Forkington Silverworth. Silverworth took full credit for it and said quote, "These are artifacts of a fallen angel." While Moonshot was beginning being fostered by Elder Kettle, Silver's old items were placed in the Inkwell Museum where they remain to this day. Silver's body is still being searched for to be put on display in the Inkwell Museum too, despite the residents thinking Silver was barely a part of heaven and was just a gardener. And that's when Silver's story and her lore ends. But when one story ends, another one begins. More specifically, Moonshot's story and the game Cuphead begins. But that will be for part 2 when we explore more Moonshot's story and their lore, and the beginning of the game Cuphead. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed hearing the first part of the lore. There are 2 more parts left to explain of the lore. I have 4 main hours of Cuphead, so if you want me to explain the lore of those, I can do a video series dedicated to the lore of those as too. Feel free to leave a like and comment on the video. This is probably the longest video I've done on my channel and the one I put the most effort into making. Sorry about all the random sounds from the AI voice. I don't know why it's doing that. Alright, that's all from me. You can finish watching the art I've made in the background. Bye!